it was like different dance moves that people were doing, and it was different than maybe traditional dance that I'd been used to. But I feel like dancing is something I really um, like to do. So having that as a part of spirituality made it really fun for me. So I think that's like one of my top choices of like spiritual relief or fun. I would just be like, okay, let's dance and kirtan. Like that's my one of the top activities that I like to do. But yeah, anyone else? Or we can what? Okay. All right. Thank you. Um, all right, we'll hear from Presence a little more about how it can be an essential part of Bhakti Yoga, which I'm really excited to hear about. So, thank you, Presence, for joining. Are you joining us from SF or where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm in South San Francisco.
Okay, sweet. That's great.
Yeah.
Presence has been practicing and teaching Bhakti Yoga for a while, and she's such a she has so much clarity and knowledge to share, and she presents it in a way that we can all understand, which I really value. So excited to have you back, Presence. And yeah, over to you.
I'm very grateful to be back, and it's so nice to see the familiar faces who are here. And I could not be more excited to share what I'm about to share with you. I'm gonna just quickly share my screen here, see if this works. All right, can everybody can see? There we go. Okay, perfect. Technology. Here we go. We can do it. So this today we're going to talk about dance in the Bhakti yoga tradition, and it's actually quite incredible. But I would like to start with a story, actually. So when I was beginning my Bhakti yoga journey, I was going to these monthly kirtans in Berkeley, and one of the kirtans that I went to, there was a man, and he was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was trying to get into this kirtan, and it was quite a challenging entry. Like it wasn't, just like an easy walk through the door. And he had, I think, Parkinson's maybe. Like he had one of those disorders where, he no longer had full control over his body. And it was quite an effort to get him into the kirtan. But, devotees are so open to serve and everybody working together. We got him in there. And then we all sat down and we started doing the kirtan. And then, as many of you who have been in kirtans know, there's this point in the kirtan where it just gets really ecstatic. The drums turn up, the tempo gets a little bit faster. And I got up and I started dancing, and then I did a twirl. And in this twirl, I turned around, and this man, he was using a walker, and he was up. He was up with his walker and he was dancing during the kirtan. And it was at this moment that I realized that there is more to the story of dancing in kirtan than I knew at that time. And so since then, I have been really, I have been looking more deeply and more deeply into what the significance of dance in Bhakti Yoga is. And basically my qualification for being here is this picture. Let's see. Let's see if I can get by. So this is why I feel like I'm qualified to be here today doing this talk because at some point on my journey, many months after seeing this man with Parkinson's, just like I saw his whole body light up despite the challenges. I realized that dancing was one of my services. So I don't just see dance as something that happens or like something that I do during a kirtan. I actually see dance as a service. And so I'm really grateful to be here because as I am able to speak more on the significance of dance to Bhakti Yoga, it actually helps me to deepen my service. So I'm so, so grateful to all of you for being here so that I could have this challenge of speaking more deeply on why dance is so significant to the Bhakti Yoga path. So, first, in order to talk about how we're going to dance our way to love, we first have to understand what love is. So, for a moment, I would love it if you could just if you want to write this down, if you just want to contemplate within yourself, whatever works best for you, just think about when you hear the word love, what does that mean to you? Like what does that conjure? What do you think about? And I'm just going to give you a minute in silence to write that down or to hold it within you. So, with that personal contemplation of love, I just want you to have that with you. We're not going to discuss it too much, but I want you to just, have that understanding that you currently have right now. And I want you to take it with you as we go through what the Bhakti Yoga scriptures say about what love truly is. So, this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's from the Adi Lila, which is the first set of the three books in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I'll read the scripture and then read what it says. So, Atmendriya priti vancha dhare balikama, Krishnendriya priti icha dhare premanama. The desire to gratify one's own senses is kama, lust. But the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema. So, what I want you to do now is you've just contemplated what your definition of love is. And just for a moment, I'm going to give you another moment, another quiet moment to just think about what side of this spectrum does your definition of love fall on, right? And it's a spectrum, so it's maybe not one side or the other. But if you were to make a spectrum from lust to love, where does your definition of love actually sit? And what I want to say, there's no right or wrong answers here. We're just using the scriptures as a way to create self-awareness. So if you still are on that lusty side, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And if you're closer to love, that's also okay. But yeah, just take a moment and think about it. So, as you're contemplating what side of this or where along the spectrum your definition of love is, I want to read you a quote from the purport of this verse, which may help you to deepen your understanding of where your personal definition of love falls. So, Srila Prabhupada wrote this in the purport. Acts of sense gratification may be performed under the cover of public welfare, nationalism, religion, altruism, ethical codes, biblical codes, health directives, fruitive action, bashfulness, tolerance, personal comfort, liberation from material bondage, progress, family affection, or fear of social ostracism or legal punishment. But all of these categories are different subdivisions of one substance, sense gratification. All such good acts are performed basically for one's own sense gratification, for no one can sacrifice his personal interest while discharging these much advertised moral and religious principles. So, what Prabhupada means here is that often the things that we believe are love are actually masquerading as love. It's actually lust masquerading as love. Because what he's trying to get us to understand in this purport is that anytime our definition of love still has any sort of self-interest in it, right? If it's for my own sense gratification, if it's for my own vindication, if it's for me somehow, then it's actually not love, it's lust. And so these are simply all of these things that he mentioned, family and biblical codes and altruism, all of these things, if they have any form of like, I'm doing this because I want something out of it, then it's just sense gratification and it's just lust. It's different shades of lust, and there are more refined shades of lust than others, but it's still lust. And so what I want to speak about next is that, what I love about bhakti is that it's so clear. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how to dance our way to love. And so we really have to understand what we're dancing toward. And so in this next verse, it really is clearly broken down what love is. Love is our purpose. Love is the purpose of our human life. So this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's from Canto 1, Text 2, Chapter 6. And the Sanskrit goes like this. Savai paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahaitu kaparit ahaitu I'm gonna do it. Ahaitu kya pratihata yayatmasu prasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which people can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So, love is our purpose, and this piece of scripture tells us what love is. So, devotional service, you'll often see this in the Bhakti scriptures, and this is how Srila Prabhupada translates love, right? So, love is actually service. It's not just a feeling, it's not just a sentiment, it's actually an action. So, it's being in service. And such love, right? And so our love needs to be directed toward the Lord. And not only this, but it needs to be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to be satisfying. So think about that. It needs to be unmotivated. So, we were speaking about this in the last verse, but what that means is that you're not thinking about like, okay, I'm going to do this for Krishna so that I can get something back. Or I'm going to do this for Krishna so that I can get released from the material world. Or I'm going to do this for Krishna so that I can get this nice car. Or I'm going to do this for Krishna so that I can have a nice house. Or I'm going to do this for Krishna so that I can be happy. Or I'm going to do this for Krishna so that I can feel peaceful. Unmotivated love is like, I'm going to do this for Krishna because I love him. That's it. That's unmotivated, right? You're not doing it for any purpose for yourself. The joy in the service is actually the service itself. So this is unmotivated love. And then uninterrupted, which means that it's every thought, every word, every action, every day, every minute, every hour, every breath is spent taking action that you're doing for Krishna just because you love him and not for yourself at all. So this is our purpose. Our purpose in this life is to develop this kind of love, and we call this love Krishna Prem, Krishna Prema. And so, now we know what love is, and now we know that our fundamental purpose is to love. And what I also want to say is I had you contemplate your personal definitions of love. And I said this once, but I will also say it again. Whatever your personal definition of love is in this moment, there's nothing wrong with it. Right? You are at the stage of bhakti that you are at. And wherever you're at in terms of that definition of love that you are holding inside of yourself, you use these kinds of things, you use these scriptures just as inspiration for how you can actually expand what you're doing in love. And so, wherever you are right now, don't feel ashamed. Don't feel like you're bad for it. You are where you are. But these scriptures are here to show us not something that we're imposing onto ourselves, but our nature. So this version of love that I'm speaking upon is actually who we truly are. It's how we were created. It is how we naturally engage with the life force that we've been given. And so, these things are here as reminders. They're here to help us remember. And so, I can't say that I'm here at all. I'm here speaking upon it and sharing these scriptures. But I also want to be clear, like, this is what we're heading toward. And it may not be where we are right now. But despite that, Krishna still is on our side, working for us, loves us, and is going to keep helping us to try to remember these things. So, with that said, how do we do this? Okay, so if this is love, if this unmotivated, uninterrupted, completely selfless love of God is like what love really is, then how do we actually achieve it? So, this verse, many of you have probably heard many times. It's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Adi Leela, but it's quoted from the Brihan Naradiya Purana. And it's Harer Nama, Harer Nameva Kevalam, Kalau Nastyeva 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 Gatir Anyata. In this age of Kali, there is no other means, no other means, no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Lord Hari. So you'll hear this a lot in Bhakti Yoga, but anytime something is said 3 times, it's like a hey, listen, you really need to listen to this. And so self-realization is speaking to that slide that we just talked about, which is our purpose. So self-realization is realizing our innate nature. It's realizing who we really are. And who we really are beings designed to love Krishna. And the only way to get to that realization is to chant the holy name of Lord Hari. And so if chanting is the way that we come to love God, why is this presentation about dancing our way to love? And I'm going to get there next. But first, and we already did this a little bit, but I want you to just take a moment and think about your relationship to dance. So, what is your relationship to dance? So, not do you like it or not? These you can think about these kinds of things. Do you like it or not? What does it feel like when you dance? When you are dancing, what's going on? Why do you dance? When you don't dance, why don't you dance? So I'm going to give you a moment in silence to just think about, like, what is your relationship to dance? All right, so again, whatever your relationship to dance with is, I just want you to take that with you. So, like, have it with you, let it be present, let it be a part of your consciousness as we now go through the next part of this presentation. So, chanting is the only way, the only way, the only way to develop love of God. But there are many practices that we do in Bhakti Yoga that are actually designed to enhance our chanting. They're designed to deepen our chanting. They're designed to make our chanting more effective, more penetrating, more purifying. And dance is one of those practices. And so I want to share this very commonly quoted quote from Sant Tukaram. He is a bhakti poet from the 17th century. And he shared this insight with us. So when you lay down and chant, Krishna sits next to you. When you sit and chant, Krishna stands next to you. When you stand and chant, Krishna dances next to you. And when you dance and chant, Krishna embraces you. So think about this for just one moment, right? There are all kinds of different bodily positions that we can take when we chant. But there's something about dancing that is very attractive to Krishna. And it's so attractive that when you do it, when you dance and you chant, and this is a very, very important takeaway. I'm going to really emphasize this. In order to dance our way to love, we must actually be doing the prescribed practice of chanting. So you can't just dance. You must dance and chant. And when you do that, Krishna embraces you. And think about that. Think about how intimate an embrace is, right? Like we don't embrace random people. Like when you get on the bus, you don't just like, I mean, if you know the bus driver, maybe you hug them. But like you don't, you're not just walking around, embracing the cashier at the check stand and you're not just embracing, the mailman when he walks up or the mail delivery person, right? Your Amazon delivery person. You choose very specifically like to engage in embrace with someone. It's a very specific and intentional choice. And so when you're dancing and chanting at the same time, Krishna makes this very intentional choice to embrace you. And all of a sudden you are wrapped in his energy, right? So it's Sachinandana Swami says that, chanting and dancing is one of the most efficient mechanisms by which to attain Krishna Prema, love of Krishna. So this is something that I carry with me. And then I wonder, I'm like, okay, so you dance and you chant. Why would Krishna choose this? And if you look into our sacred literatures, there are answers everywhere. And I'm going to start with this text from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is in the 11th canto, which is the Uddhava Gita, where the Uddhava Gita is like the Bhagavad Gita. It's the same messaging, but it's with a little bit more detail. And the Sanskrit goes like this. Upagayan Gurnan Nrityan Karmanabhi Nayan Mama Matkatha Shravayan Shrinvan Muhurtam Shaniko Bhavet. Singing along with others, chanting loudly and dancing, acting out my transcendental pastimes, and hearing and telling stories about me, the devotee should for some time absorb oneself in such festive activity. So think about this. When you love somebody, Krishna has given us an instruction. Krishna doesn't really make requests. I mean, he does make requests, right? Because in the Bhagavad Gita, at the end, he says, okay, I've told you everything that I know, and now do what you will with it. So everything that he shares with us is actually a request because he's given us free will. Because one of the other elements of love that's very important to remember is that you can't force somebody to love you. I'm sure, has anybody ever forced somebody to try to love them? Yeah, how'd that work out? Yeah, probably not so well. It's impossible, right? You can't force somebody to love you. And so because Krishna knows that, he's given us free will. And he says, okay, here are all of the mechanisms by which you can learn how to love me. And I've given them to you. It's very clear, and you just try it. It's up to you. Whether or not you want to come back into love of me or not. And the thing is, he doesn't stop loving us regardless of the choice that we make, which is one of the beautiful things about Krishna consciousness. So again, why does he embrace us when we dance and chant? It's because he's made the request of us and he sees us. I don't know if you've ever been in love and you make a request of your beloved, right? And you're like, hey, I would really love it if you could massage my feet or like whatever it is that you request of them. And they do it, right? And when they do it, it's so delightful, right? It's so delightful. And of course, afterwards, what's the first thing that you want to do after they rub your feet for 20 minutes? You want to give them a hug. You want to embrace them. And so, when we dance and chant, we're actually fulfilling one of Krishna's desires. He has said, like, you got to take some time. And this specific quote is speaking about dancing in front of the deities, just so that you're clear about the context. But, as we chant more and more, and we come to remember who we are more and more, this dancing actually begins to happen more naturally. And the reason why it begins to happen more naturally is this next piece of sacred literature, which is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila. And it goes like this. Sahaja lokera kata yahan divya gita, sahaja gamana kare yaiche nirta pratita. In Vrindavan, the natural speech of the people sounds like music, and their natural motion resembles a dance. So think about this for a moment. In Vrindavan, the natural speech of the people sounds like music, and their natural motion resembles a dance. So the spiritual world is a musical, if you really think about it. Like People are always dancing and singing. You know, everything that they do looks like a dance move. Everything that they're speaking sounds like a song. And so when you're chanting and you're dancing, what you're doing is you're beginning to resemble the spiritual world. One of the really beautiful things that I learned recently from Kastuba Prabhu, I don't know if any of you listen to Wisdom of the Sages, but Kastuba, I was recently in India at the Rishikesh Kirtan Festival, and Kastuba did this just masterful presentation of, you know, how to understand Vedic literature. One of the things that he said that really just like stuck inside of me is that the beautiful thing about the practice of bhakti yoga is that the means and the end are the same. So, what that means is that there are many practices of yoga, for example, Ashtanga, where you practice what you practice and you practice controlling the mind and you practice all of the different limbs of yoga and you get to the top. And then once you have mastered all of the practices, then you actually leave the practices behind. And this is different from Bhakti Yoga. So, Bhakti Yoga, the means and the end are the same. So we're chanting and we're dancing. And the reason why we're chanting and we're dancing is because we're going to be chanting and dancing eternally in the spiritual world. And this verse reveals that. So when we're, you know, when we're dancing in the temple, or we're dancing in a kirtan, or we're dancing in a harinam, or we're dancing by ourselves to our favorite kirtan that we just found in our rooms, when we're dancing, so long as we are dancing as an offering, this is exactly how it will be in the spiritual world. And I think it's really important to speak about dancing as an offering because this is how it's the spiritual world completely revolves around Krishna. So all of this dancing and all of the singing that's being done, it's all being done with this unmotivated and unceasing mindset, right? So all of the words, all of the thoughts, all of the movements, it's all an offering to Krishna. It's all being done to please Krishna. And so this is something that we can begin to cultivate. You know, when we're dancing in kirtan, there's so many things we could be thinking about, right? We could be thinking about if our dance moves look good. We could be thinking about if our skirts are really twirly, I guess for the ladies, for the gentlemen, if you're, you know, whatever, if you're like keeping up with the group, you can think about so many things. But in the spiritual world, if we're really trying to practice what we will be doing eternally, the idea is every time you can, you know, just like in japa when we're chanting, the idea is just keep bringing your mind back to what you're hearing. Keep bringing your mind back to the Lord's name. It's the same thing when we dance for Krishna. The idea is to keep bringing yourself back to being like, I'm dancing for Krishna. I'm dancing for Krishna. I'm dancing and chanting for Krishna. And so the interesting thing about this is the more we dance and chant, the more we remember who we are and the more joyful dancing and chanting becomes. And that's because we are beginning to remember. We're beginning to remember that actually our natural state is that of someone who's consistently dancing and chanting for Krishna. So this is another reason why dance is actually such a integral and essential part of the Bhakti Yoga path. Now, if all of this wasn't enough to convince you of how important dance is to Krishna consciousness, we need to talk about Lord Chaitanya next. So, Lord Chaitanya, in case you're not sure who he is, I just wanted to go over a brief sort of like, who is Lord Chaitanya? So, Lord Chaitanya is an incarnation of Krishna who came to Earth only 540 years ago. So, it's very, very recent. And he came in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So Lord Chaitanya had two reasons for coming to Earth. And he came in West Bengal in India. And he came here because the first reason was an external reason. And it was that at this time, the class of Brahmins, so the class of scholars and intellectuals, were saying that only intellectuals could have access to the scriptures and therefore develop love of God. And Lord Chaitanya came to be like, nope, that's not the truth. That's not actually what the Vedic literatures say, and you're wrong, and we need to correct that. And his internal reason is that Krishna is designed to love. So all Krishna has time for is love. That's all he has time for. He's the God of love. And he wants to experience love in every single way it's possible to experience love. And although he's eternal and there's no such thing as like one day and at one time, we're just going to use that because that helps our minds to understand it. But one day, Krishna realized, he was looking at Srimati Radharani, who is his eternal consort, and he was seeing how much pleasure she took from serving him. And, he had just been served, everybody had just been serving him, and he knew the pleasure of being served, but he didn't know what it was like to feel the pleasure of serving him. And he saw that it was actually more pleasing to serve him than it was to be served. And so he said, I got to know what that feels like. And so he came to Earth in the mood of Srimati Radharani in order to feel what it feels like to serve God. And in doing so, he did some really awesome things. And we're going to talk about those awesome things. So the first thing that he did while he was here that's really incredible for us is that he found the Maha Mantra in the Upanishads. And so basically what that means is that he found this mantra, and when he found the Maha Mantra, so Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when he found this mantra, he said, this is the love that Krishna and Radharani experience. And if anybody chants this mantra, they can experience this love. And the thing is, the love between Krishna and Radha is the highest form of love. And then what he did with this Maha Mantra is he gave it to everybody. He gave it to everybody. He did not care who you were. He did not care if you were a sinner or a saint or a demon or a demigod. He didn't care who you were. No matter what your background was, no matter whether you were a scholar or someone who was like the worst of all sinners, he's like, take this mantra and chant it and develop Krishna Prema, right? So in the past, people could they could attain liberation, they could attain, a form that looked like Krishna, they could attain different forms of what we call mukti, by doing things that took tens of thousands of years to do. And now, us who are like basically unable to meditate for 5 minutes, he gave us the keys to loving Krishna at the highest levels. So this is why Lord Chaitanya, he's more merciful than Krishna himself. He also sets the example of how to be an excellent devotee, right? He allows us to see what we can do to be dedicated to God. And so he's really incredible. He sets a really incredible standard in that way. And one of my favorite like facts about Lord Chaitanya is that his weapon, so he's an incarnation of Krishna, but his weapon is not a violent weapon. So, you have Kurma, for example, or excuse me, we have Varaha, right? He was the boar incarnation, and his weapon were his tusks. And we have Lord Nrsingadev, and his weapon were his like claws. And, even Krishna came and he had the Sudarshan chakra, and there was death. Like Krishna rained death down on people. Nrsingadev rained death down on people. Varaha killed people, right? It's so violent. But Lord Chaitanya's weapon was his beauty. So he didn't come here to destroy the demons physically. He came here to destroy the demons in our heart. And he did so by being so extraordinarily attractive while he was chanting. Now, how did he develop this beauty? Like what was the purpose and how did he transmit it? So we have some more amazing verses for you. So this is in the Madhya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it goes like this. Tara Madhya Chaya Vatsara Bhakta Gana Sange Prema Bhakti Laya Lauyaila Nrita Gitarange. For 6 of the 18 years, he, Lord Chaitanya, continuously stayed in Jagannath Puri. He regularly performed kirtan, inducing all the devotees to love Krishna simply by what? Chanting and dancing. So you see, Lord Chaitanya is the example of the best devotee. He's the best example of what it means to be a devotee. And he induced people to have love of Krishna simply by chanting and dancing. And so you see, there's this demonstration that, you can really help yourself and also help others by chanting and dancing. And he also left another instruction for us. So just like Krishna left an instruction to chant and dance, so did Lord Chaitanya. And this is from the Shushloka Shatakam, and this was something that was written by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And the quick story of this is that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thought that he was a great scholar, but he did not believe in God as a person. And Lord Chaitanya sat and listened to him explain Vedic literature for 7 straight days without saying a word. And then at the end of that 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was like, you haven't said anything in 7 days. And then Lord Chaitanya was like, well, it's because you don't understand anything, basically. And then Lord Chaitanya explained the truth of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya surrendered to him. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wrote 100 verses glorifying Lord Chaitanya, and this is one of them. So, Vishana Chitan Kali Papa Bitan Samvikshagaro Harinama Mantram Swayam Dadao Bhakta Janan Samadhishet Kurushwa Sankirtana Nrityavadyan. Seeing the people of the world afraid of the sins of the age of Kali, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally gave them the Harinam Hare Krishna mantra and ordered them to chant it very loudly while dancing and playing musical instruments for the benefit of the whole world. So here again, when we are thinking about why dance is so essential, it's because Krishna loves it. The spiritual world is formatted this way. And then Lord Chaitanya, who is also Krishna himself, came to earth and said, you know what devotees do to spread love of God? We chant and we dance with musical instruments, to be specific, to be very specific, right? And so, it's the more that I look into dance, the more I see that dance is not necessarily an optional part of our bhakti yoga practice. I mean, anything is optional, right? Again, going back to the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I've given you all of this information. Now do with it what you will, right? And it's the same here. I'm going to give you all this information about dance and you're going to do with it what you will. But I was speaking to somebody, her name is Shameswari Prema, and she's much deeper into this investigation of dance than I am. And she was speaking to someone who said that there are more incidences of dancing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita than there are incidences of eating prasadam. And so, like when we really start to think about this, it's very, very important. It's how Lord Chaitanya spread the holy names all throughout India when he was here on earth. But let me bring this closer to the present, right? Because sometimes, we talk about Krishna, which was like 5,000 years ago, and we talk about Lord Chaitanya, which was 500 years ago, and sometimes it feels like history. But now we can talk about something that we're actually connected to, which is Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was here in the 1960s and 1970s, and some of his disciples, so people who have actually, been in this being's presence, have knelt at this being's feet, have touched this being's hands, have had physical contact with this being, heard this being speak in their own ears, are still here. And the reality is, when I think about Srila Prabhupada's connection to Lord Chaitanya. No, Lord Chaitanya was God himself. He was Krishna, right? And so if Lord Chaitanya had wanted to, he could have spread Krishna consciousness all across the world like this. He's God. He can do anything. But he didn't, right? But who did? Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada did. And how did he do it? He did it by repeatedly emphasizing that this movement is about three things: chanting, dancing, and feasting. Right? He didn't say it's about chanting and feasting. He said chanting, dancing, and feasting. And in some of what he spoke, Srila Prabhupada also said, Lord Chaitanya introduced this dancing and chanting, and this is the easiest process for God realization. So Srila Prabhupada himself said these words, right? So dancing and chanting, it's the easiest way to develop Krishna Prema. It's the easiest way to do it. And this is because we're Gaura Bhaktas. So, you think about the prayer like Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Gaura Bhakta, that's us. And the beautiful thing about all of this is that, sometimes when we think about even Srila Prabhupada, but when we go even further back and we think about Lord Chaitanya, or when we go even farther back and we think about Krishna, we're like, oh, these things happened so far back in time. But the reality is that Lord Chaitanya's story is still unfolding right now. We're in Lord Chaitanya's golden age. The advent of Lord Chaitanya inaugurated a 10,000-year golden age. And we still have most of that golden age left. He just arrived 540 years ago, so there's still 9,000 plus years left. And Srila Prabhupada was someone who made Lord Chaitanya's prophecy that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra would be chanted in every town and village a possibility. And the thing is, we are not separate from the story. We are actually a part of the story. We are in the Leela. And dancing and chanting is a big part of this. And so I just think it can be so exciting, and it can be such a beautiful meditation to think about the fact that, yes, actually, you can dance your way to Krishna Prema. You can do it. And so I always like to give, we've gone through all of this very, very, like we've gone through all this Shastra, and we've gone through all of this kind of like high level stuff. And I always like to end on something practical. And so what I want to talk about is just some practical guidelines, for dancing your way to love. So the first practical guideline is to dance as an offering to Krishna, right? So one of the mistakes that we can make as we are trying to dance in kirtan or dance in harinam or dance by ourselves in our room is if we are doing it for ourselves. So if we're dancing because we're like, I really want to dance so someone compliments me afterwards, or like, I really want to dance because it feels really good in my body to dance, then it'll be great. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, but if the goal is developing Krishna Prema, dancing in that way is not going to get you to the goal, you know? And so, as far as you can, as much as you can, as much as you can remember, when you get up and dance, remember all of the reasons that there are to dance, all of the reasons that we just talked about, all of the instructions that Krishna gave, the mood of Lord Chaitanya, the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. There are so many reasons to get up out of your seat and dance. And just remember that it's an offering. You're not dancing for you, you're dancing because it pleases Krishna. And if Krishna is too much to think about, if you have a spiritual master in mind right now, if there's like a teacher that's starting to speak to you, you can do it as an offering to them. And if you don't have a spiritual master in mind, that's okay. You can just do it as an offering generally. You can do it as an offering to the devotees. There's always somebody that you can be offering your dance to. And it's just really important that you dance as an offering. Here's another practical guideline. Srila Prabhupada says, dance if you feel like it. And if you don't, dance and you'll feel like it. So I don't know how many of you have ever sort of like, the kirtan gets fast, you don't really want to stand up and dance, but you kind of like push yourself to do it. And what ends up happening is there's a point where you're no longer pushing yourself and the dance takes you. And so Srila Prabhupada, gives us this practical guideline, like just get up and dance. Don't worry about how you're feeling in the moment. The ecstasy of the dance, because again, dancing is our nature. To dance is our nature. And so our natural propensity to dance will take over, and whatever is going on in your mind will clear. So that's another practical guideline. Another practical guideline is don't think, how should I dance? Right? So if you're thinking about how you're going to move your hand next, or like where your feet are going to go, if you're dancing in the group dance, it's kind of a different story, right? Because you are kind of having to follow what's going on as you're dancing with the group. But if you're thinking too much about how should I dance, step out of the group. If that's what's getting in the way of you just dancing, step out of the group, step in a back corner, go where you need to go, do what you need to do. But if you're in the mode of like, how should I dance? What should I look like? What should I do? If you're in the mind too much, then you're also not going to achieve the desired result of Krishna Prema. So don't think, how should I dance? Just dance. And remember, the Swami step is enough. Now, the Swami step, I'm sitting down right now, but I'll demonstrate as best as I can. So the Swami step is very simple. It's just hands up in the air. And when I think about this, it's like someone once described to me, it's like when you're putting your hands up in the air in like this, it's like it's like a child appealing to its mother to pick it up, right? You're like, please, please pick me up, right? So it's this automatic statement of surrender, right? So you put your hands up in the air and then you just step to a side and you cross your foot over. And then you step back to the side and you cross your foot over. Let me see if I can show you. Let's see if the camera will allow it. Here we go. So it's very simple. You can only see part of it, but this is the Swami step. Literally, it's so simple. Step, cross. And you could do this for an entire kirtan, and it would be completely legitimate. And the thing is, this is the step that Srila Prabhupada gave to the Krishna consciousness movement when he first began. Because when he got here, he was working with hippies. They were dancing very sensually. It was not appropriate. They were dancing for their own gratification. And so he gave the Swami step as a baseline step. And you can do that step literally for the rest of your Krishna conscious career. And it's enough to make it so that you're dancing and chanting and Krishna is embracing you and you are engaging in the easiest methodology by which to attain love of God. Now, sometimes we have circumstances where we can't dance with our bodies, you know. So like, I mentioned that man with Parkinson's at the beginning of the talk. I broke my foot once and I couldn't dance for months. And so if you can't dance with your whole body, dance with whatever part of your body is available. Sometimes I do like physical dance workshops and I'm like, okay, dance with just one finger. Dance with your eyebrows, dance with you can sometimes make your ears wiggle, dance with your ears, whatever body part you have available, dance with that. And if there are no body parts available, dance in your mind. It's called manasa, and you can do these practices in the mind so long as you're sincere. And the most important of all of this, if you only leave here with one thing that you remember, if you only leave here with one thing that you remember, please remember this. You must be dancing and chanting. You must be dancing and chanting. And in the kirtan, there's a moment where you're hearing. So you're hearing the Maha Mantra, and then there's a moment where you're dancing and you're chanting the Maha Mantra. And so something to keep in mind with the dancing and the chanting is that if how you are dancing is making it impossible for you to chant, it's time to change the dance. So it's time to slow down a little bit. It's time to make it a little less ecstatic. So just make sure that no matter what you're doing in the dance, you are able to actually chant at the same time. And so, with all of this, you can in fact accelerate. You can accelerate the rate at which you obtain Krishna Prema, so long as it's an offering, so long as you are chanting at the same time, so long as you're sincere in what you're doing. It is a way to enhance your chanting. Because obviously, Lord Chaitanya left us 3 different ways to chant. One is Harinam, or excuse me, one is Japa, one is Kirtan, and one is Harinam. And so, there are 2 opportunities to dance, but you still need to do Japa. You still need to do the kind of chanting where it's just, focused and just the name. But 2 of the 3 things that Lord Chaitanya left us in terms of how to chant this name involve opportunities to dance. So there are so many opportunities to dance. And I highly encourage you, whenever you get the chance, even if you don't feel like it, just get up, do the Swami step, and see what happens. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I would love to open it up for reflections, questions, corrections, anything, revelations, anything you would like to share. I would love to hear from you all.
I can start off. Thanks so much, Presence. This was wonderful. Something that I've been reflecting on is that when we look at spirituality as a whole, people might have the perspective that it's boring or you just sit in one place, try to meditate on something, and many people don't even know what meditation is. I think it's just kind of like you sit down and calm your mind, but knowing that it's so holistic. Like I don't even think I can find something in Bhakti Yoga that's not used in service. Like everything is used in service, and even dance is used in service, and how it's such a happy system. And it doesn't take your natural inkling of showing joy in the way of dance or relief. Like it takes that and makes it spiritual. So I was just appreciating how colorful, like even the pictures that you put on the slides, like it all felt so fun and something that anyone would want to be like, okay, maybe I'll try this, you know? So, and I like the quote that you put from Srila Prabhupada that if you don't dance and you'll feel like it. So, I hadn't heard that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your reflection. And it's true, something else, I'm not sure where this quote comes from, but devotional service is meant to be enacted joyfully. It is
Mm.
a joyful thing, and it's joyful because the innate nature of the soul is Sat Chit Ananda. And so, Sat Chit, eternal, knowledgeable, and blissful. So when we begin to remember the truth of who we are, it's joyful. It's a blast. I mean, the spiritual world is a party. Every step is a dance, every word is a song, every day is a festival. Like it's an eternal party. And if we're able to remember this and come into the remembering of this is actually the truth. And so dance is one of those places where it's easy to remember the truth. It takes us into the truth very efficiently. And so, yeah, it's very beautiful. Thank you so much for your comment. Anyone else?
I just wanted to say, I think when you mentioned don't think about how should, in other words, what you're saying is don't overthink it.
Yeah.
And also, to me, spirituality, yes, I mean, going to church, yeah, that's boring, but spiritualism to me is not boring. It's action, and I think the ultimate action, as you mentioned, is service. I just
Yeah, spot on. Exactly. I mean, and this is how, so many of our acharyas and teachers frame it. Love is not a feeling, it's not a sentiment, it's an action. And that action is to serve the divine. And so you're absolutely right, Graham. Like, and it's not boring, right? Because inaction is quite boring, but when we are in action, you know, doing things, it's engaging and you're in flow and you're connected. And so yeah, when you're really tapping into, there are, there certainly are aspects of spirituality or forms of reaching a spiritual consciousness that do require us to slow, settle, still. But bhakti yoga is not really a tradition of this, actually. There are of course moments to pause and things like this, but we are a moment of, instead of emptying, we are a tradition of filling ourselves with the divine in every moment. So, yeah, thank you so much for your comment, Graham.
I just wanted to appreciate the perspective on dancing. I really liked how you pieced together evidence from the Vedic text to really communicate that mood of what is the dancing. I mean, oftentimes I think I take dancing as, oh, this is just really fun for me. But I really liked how you put it uh, in the sense that we're essentially recreating a pastime almost, and the mood that we're supposed to be in.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's the spiritual world. The means and the end are the same. The dancing and the chanting that we are doing now is what we'll be doing, and it's all an offering. And so, yeah, you really picked up on that. I'm very grateful for that.
Hi, Presence. I love the part when you said that if you're not chanting, then you have to slow it down and change the dance till you can chant again. It's like a metaphor.
Yeah, this is wisdom from my dance guru, Shameswari Brahma. So she passed that wisdom to me, and I am passing it to all of you.
Thank you, Presence.
Thank you.
I just have to say also, yes, your pictures, I mean, these images are beautiful. I mean, the act as well as just looking at the picture, it's beautiful.
Yes, this is Lord Chaitanya's weapon. You know, when you see, and these are real, like this last photo, this just happened several weeks ago. You know, this is like something that's happening right now in the world. This is not AI did not create this. These are real people doing a Harinam, and their joy, you can see it. You can taste it, you can chew it. And this is the power of dancing and chanting. You know, this is the power of becoming Lord Chaitanya's weapon, you know, is that it's as Manya was saying, just this blissful, exciting, joyful endeavor. And it's beautiful. And something else that's really beautiful about it, someone once said to me, is that when we dance together, so I spoke a lot about like our personal practices of dancing, but there is also something to be said about dancing together. And when we dance together, we create a devotional vortex, right? So it's one of my teachers in Bhakti Shastri shared that with me. And so it's, you know, you see when you look at this group of women dancing together, you're mesmerized and you can't look away, and it makes the chanting of the holy name sweeter. And so it actually can make our service exponential when we dance in groups and when we dance in formation as well. So it's something else to think about in your dance practice is, you know, I certainly sometimes need to just dance by myself, and there's something coming out of my body and I just need to be alone in a corner to do it. And then there are times when it's worthwhile to surrender to what's happening with with the greater group of people, and something does happen. And something that my dance guru says is that, you know, it's like when more of us are doing the same thing together, it creates the chanting gets louder and Krishna hears it more attenuatedly. And so it attracts his attention even more. So I think that's what happens when we dance in groups. And it also allows us to do what Lord Chaitanya did, which was to spread the holy name faster and with more effectiveness. And this is also something that pleases Krishna as well. So yeah, thank you for that comment, Grant. So I believe that I like to honor people's time. We're about 3 minutes over, but I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to thank you for the deep way in which you engaged with it, which was very, very apparent by what you all shared at the end. And you know, if you ever have any questions about dancing, Manya has my information, and you're welcome to get it from her. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful, and I just hope that after this, you go and you dance.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to have you in Seattle Presence and lead like a dancing kirtan party. That'd be so fun if you're ever planning a visit. Let us know.
Certainly, it would be my pleasure. Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone. We do have Kirtan Soul Fest if you want to try out the dancing in Kirtan and feel that practically. It's this Saturday. We actually have Raghunath from Wisdom of the Sages joining us. I think Presence mentioned their podcast, so he's going to be joining us, and it's going to be more of a storytelling Kirtan, I've heard. So it'll be really fun. But otherwise, we'll also see you on Wisdom Wednesdays next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a good evening. Hare Krishna.